At my husband's funeral dinner, while his picture still sat on the sideboard, my son-in-law set down his fork and said, "Now that Charles is gone, it's time you packed up and moved on." He said it like I was dead weight, like I was furniture. My daughter just sipped her wine. Didn't blink, didn't say a word. I didn't cry, didn't plead. I stood up, cleared my plate, washed it in their sink. The next morning, I opened the safe deposit box my husband left me, and that was the last day anyone mistook me for powerless. Before we find out how it came to this, if you believe karma always finds its way, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. My name is Martha Lane, 76 years old, born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. I've lived in the same 3-bedroom ranch-style house in Tempe for over 5 decades. It's nothing fancy. Built in '72, the linoleum in the kitchen's cracked and the back screen door sticks when it's humid. But it's home. The kind of home that smells like lemon oil and cinnamon toast. The kind you build, not buy. I met Charles when I was 19. He worked maintenance at the college. I was shelving books at the campus library. He wasn't a man of many words, but when he looked at you, you felt seen. We got married fast. Raised Vanessa slower. She was our only child and our whole world. We didn't have much, but we made it stretch. Charles fixed everything himself. I clipped coupons, packed school lunches, taught Sunday school. I gave up going back to college, gave up painting, gave up Paris, not out of resentment, out of love. That's what you're told, isn't it? That love means sacrifice. That a good woman holds the house together. That you don't count the cost, just keep giving. So I did. Vanessa got the best of everything: piano lessons, private school braces, spring dresses, say-tea tutors. And when she married Todd, a man with a salesman's smile and a spine made of sand, I bit my tongue and played gracious. Charles always said, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you." But it turns out I was the hand, and they bit it anyway. For 52 years, I cleaned that house, paid those bills, watered that garden. Charles and I built something steady, and the minute he died, they treated me like I was too old to matter. They thought I'd fold. They forgot who taught them how to stand. It started with missed birthdays, then holidays, calls that went to voicemail, texts that came 3 days late with nothing but a thumbs-up emoji. At first I told myself it was normal. They had kids, jobs, a life. You know how it is. But the truth was, they were phasing me out. Todd barely said 10 words to me when we visited, unless it was about the thermostat or how I parked too close to the curb. Vanessa. She smiled through gritted teeth. Like checking in on me was something she penciled in between Pilates and PTA. Charles noticed it too. He didn't say much, but his silence said plenty. Give them grace, I'd say. They're just busy. He'd grunt, sip his tea, look out the window. Then came the little comments. Todd suggesting we downsize. Vanessa offering to help us list the house when we hadn't even mentioned moving. One night at dinner, Todd looked up from his phone and said, "You know, this place would sell fast. Great bones, big lot. Might even get over asking if we move quick." Move? Like I was a box to pack. Charles waited until they left, then turned to me and said, "They're circling, like buzzards." I laughed, but it stuck with me. Still, I did nothing. Because you don't want to believe your own child sees you as an inconvenience. Then Charles got sick. His balance slipped. His memory lagged. I was at every appointment, every lab test, every pill, every fall. Vanessa called once a week maybe. Todd never called at all. One afternoon I asked if she could sit with Charles so I could run errands. She sighed, actually sighed, and said, "Mom, I've got enough on my plate already." Enough, like I was asking for luxury. Charles heard it, didn't say a word. But that night I found a legal pad on his desk. Transfer on death deed, joint tenancy, trust language. He was getting our house in order, not for him, for me. Because even then, he saw it. They weren't waiting to help me through his loss. They were waiting for me to get out of T. Charles didn't die all at once. He faded. First it was names, then it was directions. Then one day he stood in the living room and asked where the bathroom was the same bathroom he'd walked to every night for 52 years. That was the moment I knew I was losing him. I handled it. The meds, the doctors, the forms, the long nights where he forgot who I was and then cried when he remembered. I handled all of it. Alone. Vanessa didn't come, not once. She sent a fruit basket, some fancy vitamin powder, a nurse that stayed exactly one afternoon. Todd didn't call, didn't write, didn't show. When I asked Vanessa if she could spend one weekend, just one, to help me catch my breath, she said, "We've got soccer tournaments and an open house. Can you hire someone instead?" Hire someone. To hold my husband's hand, to help him to the bathroom, to whisper his name until it sounded familiar again. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Charles passed on a Thursday. He exhaled in the middle of a sentence. Just stopped. I sat there holding his hand until it went cold. Then I made the calls. Vanessa arrived the next day, in heels, with Starbucks, hugged me like a colleague, said, "Let's keep things simple. Dad wouldn't want a fuss." No church service, no eulogy, no photos, just a prepaid cremation package and a pitiful 5-minute gathering in a strip mall mortuary. They didn't even play music. I brought his favorite flannel to send with him. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "He won't need clothes where he's going," she said. I should have screamed. I should have slapped her. But I didn't. I just tucked the shirt into the box and kissed his forehead. And while they filed out into the Arizona sun like it was just another day, something inside me turned to stone. Not grief. Not yet. Just something hard and sharp and cold enough to wait. I thought it was grief making me invisible. But no, it was deliberate. At that dinner table with Charles's photo still sitting on the sideboard, they kicked me to the curb like trash on collection day. Todd had the gall to say it with a smirk. Vanessa didn't even look up. That night I left without a word. No suitcase, no speech, just my purse, my keys, and my silence. I didn't slam the door. I didn't ask why, because deep down, I already knew. To them I was too old to matter. Dead weight. An inconvenience to be cleared out. But what they didn't know was that I still held the deed. And by the time they realized it, I'd be the one holding the pen. Not them. When I was 21, I wanted to go to Paris. I had it all planned: springtime, a borrowed camera, a red wool coat I saw in a Sears catalog. I clipped photos from travel brochures and taped them to the inside of my closet. I even practiced basic French. But life doesn't care about your scrapbook. I got pregnant with Vanessa. Charles picked up a second shift. I picked up the bills and the coat. It stayed on the page. I told myself I'd go when she was older, when the house was paid off, when we could afford it. But there's always something. A cracked water heater, an ER visit, a broken tooth that needed a crown. So I put Paris away, and then I put away my painting, my college re-enrollment, my dream of having a room of my own with a window that faced the sun. I packed it all into neat little boxes labeled, "Maybe later," and later never came. That's not self-pity. That's just truth. I loved my life, or at least I thought I did, until I looked back and realized that love had become the excuse for every door I didn't walk through. They say a mother's love is limitless, but it's not. It has limits. And I found mine when I stood at my husband's funeral and watched my daughter treat me like a squatter. I gave them everything, and still they wanted more. More silence, more obedience, more of me, until there was nothing left to give. And I wonder now, sitting in this motel with my tea in a styrofoam cup, was I too soft, or was I just trying to be loved? Vanessa was born with a full head of dark hair and a scream that could shake the windows. From the start, she needed everything, and I gave it. When she had night terrors, I sat by her bed with a cold cloth and lullabies. When she skinned her knees, I kissed the bandages. When she got a B on a spelling test, I made her feel like she still ran the world. I was the cushion between her and everything sharp. Maybe that was the problem. I protected her from consequences, covered for her when she snapped at teachers, blamed stress when she lied, said she's just tired when she was mean. Charles saw it. "You baby her," he'd say. And maybe I did. But I didn't want her to feel small. I wanted her to feel invincible. When she was 13 and slammed her door in my face, I told myself it was hormones. When she was 16 and called me pathetic during an argument, I chalked it up to teenage rage. When she got into college, I cried tears of pride. And when she came home after graduation and said, "I'm not living in that boring house forever," I smiled and paid her first month's rent anyway. Every big moment in her life had a piece of me under it. Every achievement balanced on years I'd poured out quietly. And still. When Charles died, she didn't hold me, didn't thank me, didn't even look me in the eye when she told me to leave. They say children don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. But I think mine just remembered what she could take. And I taught her that, didn't I? I taught her she could take without giving. That love meant bending. That motherhood meant disappearing. So when she erased me, she thought it was normal. Charles saw it before I did. He never said much, but when it came to Vanessa, his silence got heavier with time. He noticed how she called less, how her visits got shorter, how she started referring to the house as the property. Once, while she was scrolling through her phone during a dinner visit, Charles said, "You know when someone's always looking past you? It usually means they're not planning to stay." I brushed him off. "She's just tired." He gave me a look that said otherwise. Then came the money. Small things at first, 100 here, 300 there. For the boys' tuition, a new air conditioner, a temporary shortfall. Charles kept quiet, but I saw the way he folded the bank statements with extra care, like they might explode if handled wrong. One night after she left, he turned to me and said, "You know what they say about feeding snakes too long? Eventually they forget you're the one keeping them alive." I snapped at him. Told him she was our daughter. "She's family," I said. "Don't bite the hand that feeds you." He just nodded. But the next day I found legal paperwork on his desk. Transfer on death deed, trust clause, survivorship rights, and a note in his handwriting. Just in case. I sat there staring at it, heart racing. He wasn't preparing for his death. He was preparing for my survival. And I still wanted to believe in the good, still hoped that beneath her distance and entitlement, Vanessa would remember who held her through every fever, who carried her when her world fell apart. But she didn't, and Charles knew that before I was willing to see it. He left the fire escape wide open. All I had to do was take it. It happened on a Tuesday. I had just come home from a minor surgery, nothing life-threatening but enough to knock the wind out of me. The anesthesia was still wearing off. My stitches ached. My head throbbed. Charles wasn't there to hold my hand this time. Vanessa came by eventually. Todd, too. They brought a rotisserie chicken and a bagged salad, set it on the counter like an offering. Then they sat and waited. I asked Vanessa if she could help me up the stairs. She looked at her watch. "Mom," she said, "we're not your servants." Todd chimed in. 3 hours in and you're acting like we're full-time nurses. Maybe you should look into assisted living. Assisted living? Like I was already halfway gone. I looked at Vanessa, really looked, and all I saw was calculation. She wasn't helping out of love. She was checking boxes, playing the part, staying close enough to be in the will but far enough not to break a sweat. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "You have 48 hours to pack your things and leave my house." They blinked, laughed, thought I was bluffing. Then I opened the drawer and showed them the trust. Charles's signature, my rights, everything airtight. Vanessa's face cracked first. Todd stood up, shouting something about lawyers, but I wasn't listening. I walked to the door, opened it, and waited. They left with nothing but their pride and even that looked flimsy. That night, I sat in the living room with Charles's old flannel robe wrapped around my shoulders, and for the first time since the funeral, I felt warm. There's something gut-wrenching about realizing your worst fear wasn't a storm or a stranger. It was your own blood, not because they shouted or hit or stole, but because they drained you slow, like a leaky faucet you keep ignoring until the mold sets in. They bled me dry with entitlement, then had the gall to act like I owed them more. It's not the betrayal that breaks you, it's the silence. The way they leave you standing in your own kitchen, hurting while they talk about property values. So if you're listening to this and wondering if it's time to draw a line, it is. You're not too old to matter, and you're not crazy for remembering every ounce of love you gave. They remember it too. They just hoped you wouldn't. Charles never trusted banks. Not entirely. He'd use them, sure, but he always said, "Don't ever put all your eggs where some strangers got the key." After he passed, I started going through the house room by room, cleaning, sorting, listening to the quiet. In the garage behind the tool rack, I found it, a metal lockbox, old, heavy. Taped to the back was a single yellow, sticky note in his handwriting. "If they ever turn on you, open this first." My hands shook. Inside a notarized trust revision signed 3 years before his death. One clause stood out. If our grandchildren become legally dependent and our daughter proves unfit to care for them, the trust becomes active for the grandchildren's exclusive benefit, managed by the surviving spouse. No contest allowed. I read it 3 times. Then again, he knew. He knew Vanessa might fail as a mother, that Todd might chase quick money, that love wasn't enough to secure loyalty, but more than that, he had planned a backdoor, a quiet one, a ghost's gambit. The key was in the clause. If the boys got expelled, arrested, or medically flagged anything that got them labeled legally dependent, I could activate full control of the fund. It was airtight, untraceable. And Vanessa had no idea it existed. All I had to do was wait, and sure enough, life gave me a breadcrumb. 2 months after the eviction, I got a call from an old teacher friend. Said one of the boys had been caught with edibles on school property. Expulsion pending. The school tried to reach Vanessa. She ghosted their calls. Todd stormed in and threatened a lawsuit. It didn't go well. The next day, I printed the incident report, tucked it into the trust file, and made an appointment with Charles's old attorney. She read the file, looked up at me and said, "They're dead to rights." I nodded and signed the reactivation papers. It was done. Vanessa thought she'd buried me with Charles. She didn't know he'd left me the shovel, and I had just started digging. Todd once bragged at a cookout that he could smell lawsuits coming like rain. Well, he didn't smell this one. Because I didn't send it through their front door, I sent it to the county registrar, to the bank, to the school board, to anyone who had a say in legal guardianship or estate enforcement. It wasn't a battle cry. It was a paper trail. And by the time Vanessa realized what I'd done, it was already over. She showed up on my porch 3 days later, not angry. No, that would have been too honest. She came with crocodile tears, said she was worried about the boys, said she was scared. I asked her if she remembered what she said the last time she stood in my kitchen. She blinked, said she didn't. I did. "We're not your servants." She stood there, shifting from foot to foot, waiting for me to open the door. I didn't. Instead, I handed her a photocopy of the trust, highlighted, annotated, Charles's signature shining in the corner. Her lips twitched. She looked ready to spit something mean, but bit it back. "You'd really let your grandsons grow up thinking their mother failed them." I looked her dead in the eye. "They won't have to think it, Vanessa. They'll remember." She stormed off, but not before turning back and hurling one last shot. "You're bitter, alone, and you'll die that way." I watched her walk down the steps, watched her slip on the last one. Didn't flinch, because she was wrong about one thing. I wasn't alone, not anymore. I had Charles's words, his plan, his trust, and soon I'd have something even better. Their silence. Todd once called himself a crypto genius, said he could triple any investment if he just had a little more seed money. Vanessa ate it up like gospel, so I let them hang themselves. I froze the accounts tied to the family trust, had the attorney pull Charles's contributions from their joint venture shell LLC, the one Todd used to fund his startups. The minute that money disappeared, the panic set in. Todd left 3 voicemails in an hour, all rage and no substance. Vanessa emailed me with subject lines like urgent and family emergency. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a copy of the trust termination clause to the bank, invoking breach of duty protections. It was over. Vanessa couldn't touch a cent. Todd's accounts got flagged for back taxes. Their little empire, the one they were so smug about, crumbled in under a week. But the best part wasn't the money. It was the silence. I sat by the window with Charles's favorite mug in hand and watched as their leased Audi got towed. Later, I heard they tried borrowing from friends. Got turned down. Todd had burned too many bridges. And Vanessa, well, she finally had to do something she hadn't done in decades. Work. She picked up a job at a boutique downtown folding sweaters for women she used to mock. Poetic. I'd go in sometimes. Quiet. Sunglasses on. She never noticed me. But once, just once, she looked up and froze. I nodded, didn't smile, just turned and walked out. Because that was enough. She knew what I'd done. She knew who held the cards now, and more importantly, she knew I wasn't bluffing anymore. Charles always said, don't leave your legacy in someone else's hands, so I didn't. After the financial freeze, I turned my attention to the estate, the house, the land, the heirlooms, everything they thought they'd inherit. I met with the estate planner and filed a full restriction transfer one that locked down all tangible assets under my sole authority until my death or voluntary release. No power of attorney, no right of sale, not even a signature line for them. It wasn't just about punishment, it was about clarity. They had treated me like dead weight. Now they'd get nothing until I was dead, and even then not without my say. I rewrote the will. Every item, every dollar, every photo labeled, documented, protected. I named the school librarian a woman who once bought me soup when I was grieving as the executor. Vanessa and Todd nowhere in the plan. I even added a clause should any individual challenge the terms of this, will their share, if any, will be forfeited immediately. Let them test it. Let them see what it feels like to come up empty. The last thing I filed was a letter, handwritten. To my grandsons it began. It told the truth, not to poison them, but to plant a seed. One day they'll want to know why Grandma vanished, why Mom never speaks of her. They'll look for the story, and they'll find it in my handwriting, in my voice. I didn't want revenge. I wanted memory, and now it's locked in, tighter than any vault. I used to think closure came with a hug, or an apology, or some teary confession where they finally admit they were wrong. That's fairy tale stuff. In real life, closure comes in silence, in choosing not to answer the door. The last time I saw Vanessa, it wasn't planned. I was leaving the grocery store pushing my cart of canned soup and cleaning wipes when I saw her across the lot. She looked thinner. Not in the way women try to be, but like life had been peeling pieces off her. She saw me, froze, then jogged over trying to act casual. "Hi, Mom," she said, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't tried to gut me out of my own life. I waited, let her squirm. Then she dropped the act. I was wondering if maybe we could talk. The boys miss you. That part I believed. But I also knew she was hoping for a crack, a sliver, anything that looked like forgiveness so she could crawl back in. I nodded, reached into my purse, pulled out a folded envelope. She took it like it was gold, ripped it open. Inside a copy of the updated will, no name of hers in sight. She looked up, mouth open, eyes wide, but I didn't wait. I turned, pushed my cart to the car. She didn't follow. She got the message. Sometimes the cleanest goodbye is the one you don't say out loud. And sometimes the only way to win is to stop playing their game. For good. The first domino fell when I froze the joint trust. But I didn't stop there. See, Vanessa and Todd thought they were slick rerouting funds, hiding assets in LLCs, leveraging the family name for business deals they had no business making. But Charles taught me more than how to manage a budget. He taught me how to read a ledger and how to weaponize one. I hired a forensic accountant. Quiet, discreet, ruthless. We traced every dime they'd moved in the last 4 years, every unauthorized transfer, every personal expense disguised as a business write-off. Then I filed a formal complaint with the IRS, anonymously, of course. Within a month, Todd's consulting firm got audited. His crypto genius act couldn't explain the missing tax documents or the shell invoices with no real clients. His accounts were frozen, his business license suspended. And just like that, the man who once boasted about making 6 figures in his sleep couldn't even pay rent on his office space. Vanessa didn't fare much better. Turns out she'd been dipping into a line of credit Charles had opened years ago for emergencies, co-signed under the family estate. The bank pulled the line, raised her interest. Collections came knocking. They tried to call me, of course. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent them a notarized statement revoking their rights to act on behalf of the estate. That's when the calls stopped. But the fallout didn't. Todd's car got repossessed. Vanessa's credit score plummeted. The boutique job she picked up gone after a customer complaint rumor had it. She snapped at a woman who asked if the store did returns. It wasn't just a financial collapse. It was an unraveling. They had built their entire identity on the illusion of control, of status, and I took it all away, quietly, legally, irrevocably. I wasn't trying to ruin them. I was trying to remind them. You don't bite the hand that feeds you, and you damn sure don't kick her to the curb and expect a check in the mail. They thought I was just an old woman. Turns out I was the one holding the fuse. Funny thing about small towns, word travels faster than light. I didn't have to say a word, but I did leave breadcrumbs. One copy of the trust paperwork went to Pastor Jim, who'd known Charles since he was a boy. Another slipped anonymously to Vanessa's employer before she got fired. And one more, the best one, found its way into the mailbox of Dana Coulson, president of the Women's Club. Dana loved gossip, but more than that, she loved facts. I made sure she had plenty. Vanessa's lies about being the one who cared for Charles in his final months, debunked by hospice receipts with my signature. Todd's claims of business acumen, refuted with screenshots of his revoked license and the IRS audit letter. No confrontation, no slander, just documents and truth. Their social invitations dried up overnight. No more charity galas, no more neighborhood brunches. The same people who once toasted to Todd and Vanessa's bright future were now crossing the street to avoid them. At the farmer's market, I watched Vanessa pretend not to see me. She lingered by the honey stand, looking lost. She had become a ghost in the town where she once held court. Todd tried to host a barbecue to win back favor. Only 2 guests showed up, both left before dessert. I wasn't trying to humiliate them. I was reclaiming my place. The woman they dismissed as fragile, outdated, disposable. I was still here, still standing, and now finally seen. Because reputation isn't built by volume, it's built by truth. And the truth, once free, doesn't go back in the box. They tried to rewrite history. I just made sure everyone had the original draft. When the money ran dry and the invitations stopped coming, it didn't take long for them to turn on each other. I didn't need to lift a finger. Todd started whispering that Vanessa had pushed too hard too fast. Vanessa, in turn, told anyone who'd listen that Todd was the one who bled the estate dry. They were once united in greed. Now they were 2 rats on a sinking ship, each blaming the other for chewing the whole. Their friends, or what was left of them, watched from a distance. Even Vanessa's sister-in-law, who used to hang off her every word, posted some cryptic status on Facebook. Funny how people forget who raised them until the money's gone. I didn't comment. Didn't need to. The town was already doing my work for me. At church, people started sitting a little closer to me again. At the market, a few even asked how I was holding up. Kindness that once disappeared was trickling back. Vanessa, though, she looked thinner by the day. Not sick, just starved of control. She came by one afternoon, didn't ring the bell, just left a note in my mailbox. I never meant for this to happen. No signature, no apology, just cowardice. She thought guilt might reel me back in. She underestimated just how far gone I was. Todd, on the other hand, got bolder, started blaming me in public, said I manipulated Charles, that I was trying to ruin his life. But it backfired. One of the men at the VFW hall stood up, said, "Son, you did that yourself." That was the end of it. Their last line of defense sympathy had collapsed. And I didn't gloat. I just watched. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. It was revelation. Let the truth do the talking. It happened on a Tuesday. I was trimming the rose bushes when Vanessa pulled up in a car I didn't recognize, probably borrowed. She didn't storm out or scream. She walked slowly like someone approaching a grave. She had aged. Or maybe I was just seeing her without the filter of hope. "Mom," she said. I stood, wiped my gloves on my apron. "I don't want to fight," she added quickly. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry." I waited. Let the silence do what it does best, squeeze the truth out. She continued. "Todd's gone. He moved back with his brother. I don't blame you anymore. I miss my mom. That line should have split me open. But it didn't, because I knew what she missed wasn't me. It was the version of me that fed her, covered for her, let her bite without biting back." I nodded toward the porch. She followed. We sat. The same spot Charles and I had once shared. I poured her tea. She held it, barely sipping. I was angry, she said. Lost. Todd was Todd. But I didn't know how bad it had gotten. I looked at her. Really looked. And then I said it. "You knew. You just didn't care, not until the money ran out." She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. "No more spin, Vanessa. No more crocodile tears. I'm not your fallback plan." Tears welled up. "I'm your daughter," she whispered. "And I was your mother," I said. "A damn good one. But you treated me like dead weight." She cried then. Real tears, maybe. I didn't flinch, because I had mourned her already, buried the version of her I loved long ago. She wiped her eyes. Stood. "I guess this is it." I nodded. "Yeah, this is it." She left the cup on the porch. Didn't look back. And I didn't stop her. Because sometimes the cleanest peace comes from shutting a door and locking it behind you. The quiet didn't come all at once. It crept in, little by little. At first it felt too big, too hollow, like the house was mocking me for sending everyone away. But over time, it changed. I started waking up without dread. The kitchen no longer echoed with tension. The phone didn't buzz with demands or fake pleasantries, just stillness. And stillness, I've learned, has a sound. The hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, the soft clink of teacups in the sink. It's not loneliness, it's peace. For the first time in decades, the house was mine again. No one asking for help. No one calling me too emotional or too old to matter. Just me. I painted the guest room a pale blue, hung wind chimes out front, the good kind, the ones that sing, even when the breeze is shy. Charles would have liked them. I planted lavender near the porch and watched it bloom. The bees came. So did a few hummingbirds. The garden thrived. Funny, isn't it, what grows when no one's draining you dry? I stopped checking Facebook. Didn't need to see what Todd was pretending to build. Didn't care what Vanessa posted to keep up appearances. My story no longer lived online. It lived in the smell of clean sheets, in the rhythm of my rocking chair, in the way I spoke out loud to Charles sometimes and swore I heard him chuckle. He was right, you know. He warned me, and I didn't listen. But in the end, I stood up. Not just to them, but to the part of me that thought being loved meant being used. I chose me. It's not glamorous. There's no parade or standing ovation, just the sun rising again, and the porch swing creaking softly beneath me. I was never after revenge. Not really. What I wanted, what I needed, was to stop bleeding for people who never once brought a bandage. And now I'm richer than I've ever been. Not in money, in freedom. People forget that freedom doesn't always mean escape. Sometimes it means staying and taking back what's yours. The old house isn't perfect. The plumbing groans. The roof will need patching before winter. But it's mine, paid off, cleared. No vultures circling. There's a kind of pride that comes from cutting off the leeches. From knowing you didn't just survive the storm, you boarded the windows, bailed the water, and planted flowers where the rot used to be. I walk into town twice a week. People nod now. Some stop to talk. I don't hold grudges against the ones who stayed quiet while Vanessa and Todd played their games. Fear makes cowards of decent folks. But time exposes the brave ones. Last month, Dana from the Women's Club asked me to join their fall fundraiser board. I said I'd think about it. Not out of pettiness. Out of peace. Because I no longer say yes to things out of guilt. Only out of joy. The grandkids haven't come around. That part still stings. But they're young, and time has a funny way of teaching what pride won't. If they ever knock, I'll open the door, but I won't chase them. Because healing isn't a door you swing wide for anyone who brings regret. It's a gate, one they have to walk through on their own, and I'll be here, not waiting, just living. Rich in lavender, rich in silence, rich in the one thing they tried to steal myself. It came on a Thursday, a thick envelope cream-colored with my full name written in careful cursive. No return address. I almost didn't open it. Thought it was some charity or another asking for a donation. But inside, a letter from Todd, typed not handwritten, formal like a business memo. He never could do vulnerability without a keyboard. He said he was in therapy, said he'd reflected on patterns of entitlement, said he understood now how much harm he'd caused, especially in trying to turn Vanessa against me. Then came the kicker. I know there's no making it right, he wrote, but I've decided to dissolve what's left of the business and donate the remainder to hospice services, in Charles's name. No request for reconciliation, no plea for forgiveness, just a final bow. I set the letter down, and I cried. Not for Todd, not even for Charles. For me. Because something in that moment cracked open, and I felt seen. Just a little. Redemption's a funny thing. It doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's just one person finally calling their own bluff. I didn't write back. Not yet. But I lit a candle that night. Left it burning in the kitchen. Not for closure, not for them. For the girl I used to be. The one who bent over backward for crumbs of affection. The one who thought staying silent made her strong. She's finally resting now. And in her place, a woman who answers to no one but herself. There's a different kind of silence that comes after the storm, not the brittle silence of grief, not the sharp waiting silence of betrayal. This one is soft, whole. I sit on the porch most evenings now, same swing, same view, but it feels earned. There's no more pretending, no more performing for anyone else's expectations. I light the citronella candles, pour one glass of sweet tea, and I breathe. Some nights the wind carries the scent of honeysuckle. Other nights just the promise of rain. And always a strange feeling in my chest. Not sadness, not even joy, just peace. The kind you don't notice until you've lived without it for too long. Once in a while, I get a letter, a real one, from someone who heard the story, bits and pieces anyway, and wanted to say I wasn't alone. Most are women, some older, some younger, all of them tired. Tired of being the backbone, the safety net, the invisible hand. They thank me for standing up, but I don't feel brave. I just feel free. Sometimes I whisper to Charles while watching the stars blink on. I tell him I hope he's proud. I think he is. The rose bushes are blooming again. Vanessa never came back. Not yet, and that's fine. She's got her own storm to walk through. If she ever does return, I'll be here. Not the same mother she remembers, not the doormat, not the safety net, but a woman who owns her story, who rebuilt her home not just in wood and stone, but in boundaries, and lavender, and truth. And so, Martha didn't just survive. She reclaimed. Her story isn't just one of betrayal. It's one of boundaries, of finally realizing that being needed isn't the same as being loved. Sometimes the most radical act of love is the one we give ourselves. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just shut the door. And that sound, it was freedom. If this story gave you the justice you needed, give it a like and hit subscribe. The next one might hit even harder. And tell us in the comments, have you ever had to walk away from someone who took too much? We're listening.